Hey everybody, welcome back to another song bracket. We've got a very fun episode for you today. The artist we're going to be covering is Todd Rundgren, one of my favorite songwriters from the late 60s and 70s. He would definitely make my top 10 list. He was, and still is, a very prolific songwriter and artist, and he's got a pretty big discography that I think held up really well over the years, and just countless records and countless songs that I would regard to be some of the great contributions to rock music over the past 50 years. And I'm excited for you to join me on the quest to find his best song. So the way it's going to work is just like all of the other song brackets. It's going to be 32 songs with 16 on each side. And I'm going chronologically with the songs. I'm starting from the Runt album, and the most recent album that I'm going up to is Liars. And it's going to be just a basic process of elimination, tournament until we get down to the final two, and then we will have the grand reveal of what my number one favorite Todd Rundgren song is. All right, I think we're ready to jump into it. So here is round one of side one, starting out with We Gotta Get You a Woman versus Long Flowing Robe off of his first two records. For this one, I'm going to go with We Gotta Get You a Woman. I really love that song. Although I'm not a huge fan of the first album, but I do think this is, really the standout track from that record and one of the great early Todd Rundgren songs. All right, moving on to the second album, the pairing is going to be the ballad Denny and Jean versus Wailing Wall. That's a tough one. Those are both really pretty piano-centered tracks, but if I had to pick one, I think I would go with the ballad Denny and Jean, although those were pretty close. Those are both great songs to come from that record. All right, moving on to Something Anything. The pairing is going to be I Saw the Light versus It Wouldn't Have Made Any Difference. I think it's hard to top I Saw the Light. I'm going to have to go with that one. Just such a legendary Todd Rundgren track. And next, we're combining two different albums, Something Anything and A Wizard, A True Star, with Hello, It's Me versus International Feel. As much as I love International Feel, I just think Hello, It's Me is such an exceptional and classic Todd Rundgren track, so I'm going to go with that one. All right, next, Sometimes I Don't Know What to Feel versus It Takes Two to Tango, another pairing of A Wizard, A True Star versus Something Anything. I'm going to go with It Takes Two to Tango. I think this is one of the most underrated Todd Rundgren tracks. I think it kind of gets overshadowed by the hits that are on Something Anything, but I think that is an exceptional track with so much cool stuff going on instrumentally and just the change in the feels and the instrumentations, just an incredible track. So I'm going to go with that. All right, next we're getting into 74 and 75 with Initiation and the Todd album, and the pairing is going to be Real Man versus A Dream Goes On Forever. I love Real Man so much. I think it's one of the best opening tracks of any Todd Rundgren record, but at the same time, A Dream Goes On Forever is just a perfect song. It wouldn't feel right picking anything but that, so I'm going to choose that. All right, next, Is That Love versus Love of the Common Man? That is a tricky one. I got to think about that one for a second. Wow, I'm stumped. I guess I'll go with Love of the Common Man, but that was a very tough choice. Those were very neck and neck. All right, and for the last pairing of side one, we have two tracks from Hermit of Mink Hollow, which is my personal favorite Todd Rundgren album, with Can We Still Be Friends versus All the Children Sing. Can We Still Be Friends would be the obvious choice because it's the big hit from that record, but I'm actually going to go with All the Children Sing. That might surprise some people, but I think that, again, is one of the best opening tracks of any Todd Rundgren album. I love the synth sounds, and just the overall vibe of that song is so cool. One of my favorite openers, in addition to Real Man, like I had mentioned before. All right, that concludes round one of side one. Now round one of side two, starting out with Fade Away versus Compassion. So the Healing album versus Hermit of Mink Hollow. Compassion is such a beautiful song, but with that said, I think Fade Away is even more beautiful, and that's my favorite closing track of any Todd Rundgren record, so I'm going to go with that. All right, next we have Healing Part 1 versus Hideaway. These are both, again, absolutely spectacular tracks, but I think I got to go with Healing Part 1. That song just has such a magical power to just get me in a really deep meditative state. It's just a song that has a special place in my heart. All right, Bang the Drum All Day versus Pretending to Care, which is off of Todd's a cappella record. This is the easiest choice so far of the entire video, Pretending to Care by a long shot. I cannot stand the song Bang the Drum All Day, but I'm glad it's been so lucrative for Todd over the years. But Definitely one of my least favorite Todd Rundgren tracks. All right, next we have Something to Fall Back On versus The Waiting Game, the a cappella record, and the Nearly Human record from 1989. Gotta go with The Waiting Game. That is just such an incredible song with a great energy to it. Next is Parallel Lines versus Change Myself. That is a tricky one. As much as I love Change Myself, I think Parallel Lines is a track for me where the more I listen to it, the more and more my appreciation grows for it, and I find the chord progression particularly interesting. So that might surprise some people, but I'm going to go with Parallel Lines. All right, next, Love Science versus You're Fast, which is from the Second Wind album and the One Long Year album. These are both incredible songs as well. I love the guitar riff on You're Fast, but Love Science is just so groovy and just, makes me want to get up and dance every time I hear it, so I'm going to pick that one. All right, now for the last four of this side, I chose all songs from the Liars album, which is one of my personal favorite Todd Rundgren records, and when it comes to the later part of his discography, I think this is hands down his best album. So the first pairing is Afterlife and Future. Whew, another tough one. These are both very dreamy, very vibey songs. Love the synth sounds on both of them. I think I'm going to go with Future. That song just has such a great just overall mood and energy to it, and I love the changes. Although Afterlife is incredible too. That was definitely a tough choice. All right, for the final one, Stood Up versus God Said. Another tough one. All four of these are my favorite songs from that album, so that's why this is such a tough choice. I think I'll go with Stood Up. I think I listened to that one probably a little bit more than God Said, just because it's a little bit more of an upbeat, groovy sort of vibe, where God Said is really moody and darker. But again, both incredible songs. All right, now we are on to round two of side one. We Gotta Get You a Woman versus the ballad Denny and Jean. Honestly, I think I like We Gotta Get You a Woman a little bit more. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of that album, but that song in particular I do think is very, very strong. And then I Saw the Light versus Hello, It's Me. Of course, I was going to have this pairing. This is like an impossible choice to make. The two classic songs from Something Anything. Wow. I didn't want to have to make this choice. This was the one that I was hoping would not end up lining up on this bracket, but I think I have to go with I Saw the Light. That's the first Todd Rundgren song I ever heard, so it does have a special place in my heart. I actually heard it on the movie Kingpin. It was on the Kingpin soundtrack, and I remember when I was a kid just loving it, but I never knew who it was. And then as I got older, I eventually found out it was Todd Rundgren, so a song that's near and dear to my heart. All right, It Takes Two to Tango versus A Dream Goes On Forever. I'm going to upset a lot of people with this one, but I'm going to go with It Takes Two to Tango. Again, I just think it is a criminally underrated Todd Rundgren track that has so much depth to it. Although A Dream Goes On Forever is obviously a classic from the mid-'70s, but I think I got to go with It Takes Two to Tango. I just love that track so much. And then the last pairing, Love of the Common Man versus All the Children Sing. I'm going to upset some people again. I'm going to go with All the Children Sing. Even though Love of the Common Man is an incredible song and one of the hits from that record, I just think All the Children Sing is the perfect track to kickstart Hermit of Mink Hollow, and it's just a very interesting sounding song. All right, round two of side two, Fade Away versus Healing Part 1. Both are absolutely beautiful songs, but I got to go with Fade Away. Absolutely love that track. Pretending to Care versus The Waiting Game. I got to go with Pretending to Care. That's my favorite song from the a cappella album, and just, vocal-wise, there's so much beautiful stuff, so many great layers and harmonies and interesting chord movements going on, and that outro is just incredible, too. All right, Parallel Lines versus Love Science. As much as I love both of these songs, I'm going to go with Parallel Lines. That might be another one that will shock some people, but again, just one of those kind of just random Todd Rundgren songs that I absolutely love. And then another pairing from the Liars album, Future against Stood Up. I can't decide. You know what? I'm going to pick Future. Both great songs, but I think Future, I probably listen to Future a little bit more, and just, the overall vibe and synth sounds, just everything about it I think is great. Okay, now we get to round 3 to narrow it down to the final 4. So for side 1, we have We Gotta Get You, A Woman versus I Saw the Light. That's an easy one. I Saw the Light by far. And then It Takes Two to Tango versus All the Children Sing. Some people might be surprised to see that these are some of the final choices, but again, these are just, random Todd Rundgren songs that I absolutely love. But gotta go with It Takes Two to Tango. As much as I love All the Children Sing, but I like It Takes Two to Tango just the slightest bit more. All right, and now side 2, Fade Away versus Pretending to Care. These are both really beautiful songs, but gotta go with Fade Away. Again, a perfect conclusion to Hermit of Mink Hollow. And then Parallel Lines against Future. That's an interesting one. Two very different eras of the Todd Rundgren discography. I think I'm going to go with Parallel Lines. Again, just love that track so much. All right, now we're down to the final 4. So to narrow it down to the final 2, for side 1, we have I Saw the Light versus It Takes Two to Tango, both of which are off of Something Anything. And this is going to be another upset for some people, but I'm going to go with It Takes Two to Tango. I love I Saw the Light, but I think, It Takes Two to Tango is even more interesting. And maybe it's because I just have heard I Saw the Light so much throughout my life, and I haven't heard It Takes Two to Tango as much, so it might be just a little more fresh. Even though I've listened to the song dozens and dozens of times, maybe it's just because I haven't listened to it to death like I have with I Saw the Light. So that could be partly why, but obviously it goes without saying those are both incredible tracks. And then for side 2, Fade Away versus Parallel Lines. Gotta go with Fade Away. Just an absolutely beautiful track. Now we're down to our final 2, and I'm sure a lot of people are pretty surprised and maybe confused that these were the 2 to make it to the very end, because neither of these are regarded as Todd Rundgren hits, but he's always been one of those artists for me where a lot of the B-sides I think are even stronger than the hits. The hits are great, but I do find, a lot of my enjoyment listening to Todd Rundgren comes from just a lot of random tracks from a variety of different albums that are not regarded as hits. So this is a funny one because I did a video ranking all of Todd Rundgren's albums maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And in that video, I said It Takes Two to Tango was my favorite Todd Rundgren song. But I think over the years, I've actually changed and evolved on that. And I actually think Fade Away is my number 1 favorite Todd Rundgren song. Everything about this song, I think, is just so beautiful. The production, the instrumentations, the vocal melodies, the chord movement, the bridge is really interesting. And just the overall just mood of the song. I think it has a very sweet sound to it. And with Hermit of Mink Hollow being my favorite Todd Rundgren album, I do not think it could have concluded with a better song than this. And that is now my official number 1 favorite Todd Rundgren song. So I'm sure a lot of people will be surprised with that pick. But, that's the fun part about making these videos. You never know where it's going to end up. All right, that is our song bracket for today. Thank you so much for watching, and please let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of disagreement and probably a lot of agreement as well. And let me know what your favorite Todd Rundgren song is, and which of my choices you would switch out. And yeah, let me know in the comments. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. All right, that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and please feel free to check out my other song brackets as well as my album ranking tier lists and my top 5 favorite album series where I walk you through my 5 favorite albums from every year. You better bet that Todd Rundgren has popped up on numerous of those videos, and that should go without saying with him being one of my favorite songwriters. And yeah, that is it for today. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you at the next video. Take care.